Professor Susan Booysen. She joins us now via our video link. Professor, thank you so much for your time this evening here on SABC News. I mean, today we saw that meeting officially getting underway. It was expected to take place on the day where the ANC celebrated 100 days of the GNU, but we remember the SACP backing out from that bilateral meeting. What do you make of this now officially getting underway, where the two are seeming to try to find each other?
Yes, good evening. I think we should really read into this the mutual need by these two parties, close alliance partners, in an uneven relationship, we should add, that there is a mutual need between the SACP and the ANC to remain in an alliance. It is even a type of coalition internally in terms of the tripartite alliance configuration. But there's a mutual need for them to remain in this relationship. From the SACP side, of course, we know the SACP almost always, almost without exception, has played the role of doing the backroom influence on the ANC. And from the SACP side, this insistence on this meeting and emphasis on the importance of the meeting is a sign of recognition that the game has changed in politics. SACP, it seems to be quite uncertain now as to the type of influence it has, given the government of national unity coalition of the ANC with the DA. And so there's reassurance needed from their side. And from the ANC side, they really need SACP because for the ANC, it's important to show, they've been going out of their way to show, that they're not in an exclusive alliance with the DA and actually that they retain certain alternatives.
And Professor, of course, one would say that the ANC did not obtain a 50% majority at the 2024 elections and simply really had no choice here but to get into some sort of coalition with various political parties, and hence why it finds itself in this government of national unity. But with the SACP continuing to show its skepticism of working with the DA and the Freedom Front Plus, would you say that it's warranted? And hearing the SACP saying that the policies are quite different and looking at where we find ourselves now when it comes to the Bella Act, when it comes to the NHI, would you say that the SACP's position is warranted here?
Well, yes, indeed, because they, as I also pointed out this morning, they and the DA are most often not on the same page at all. And they, as they pointed out in the campaign, recently election campaign, middle of the year in May, they had campaigned against the DA. However, it is quite important that they should know and should have known it all along for a long time, if they are really truthfully reflecting on it, that the ANC is not as revolutionary, is not as socialist as the SACP would like it to be. There's always been the contests on issues. We can just think back on GNU-era, and we can look at current day politics as to the large amount of convergence between the ANC and parties like the DA. So it is a long-standing contest really between the SACP and the ANC, and the SACP only rarely haven't seen its way clear to contest elections on its own. Given that there are elections coming up again next year, local government elections, it is again the time for the SACP to play potential opposition of the ANC in elections as their internal trump card for better policy influence. So it is an ongoing contest, and this is not the first round that we've seen, although the rules have changed with the GNU, which makes, and the DA's prominent position there, which obviously makes the SACP quite a bit more nervous about its potential influence.
It also seems as if, the issue around coalitions and this GNU is with us for quite some time, considering that it will take a number of political parties a long time to obtain a 50% majority following our elections once again. How can the SACP now use its position in the alliance to influence the GNU in some sort of way?
Well, I think what they are doing the best they can, and using all the instruments and tools they have at their disposal right now, and that is to put out the notion that, yes, it might contest elections on its own. And we know from past experience, like we saw in 2017, December 2017, in the Metsimaholo local government by-elections, where the SACP, when they did, was the rare and I believe only occasion on which they contested against the ANC. And we know from there, and it's likely to remain the case, that the vote is really split then between the ANC and the SACP. So the SACP does have that type of power. It will not do well in elections, but should it oppose the ANC, it could take support away from the ANC. So the ANC would really like to keep them on board, keep them as part of the united front there. It will help the ANC to retain this public image as being progressive and maybe in some respects quite revolutionary. But the SACP has got limited bargaining power in there. And we know from a middle of the year consultations that the ANC had in its NEC, there wasn't a bilateral with the SACP, but many members of the ANC NEC are also SACP. And they were among those in the NEC of the ANC that had really preferred that the ANC should go the road of a minority government. And that is technically possible, but it still means that on many decisions, national level and in other forums, there would have to be a majority that is organized, which would make it very volatile, governance very volatile, if every time a big decision is required for majority to find new partners.
And Professor, going into the 2024 elections, and for a number of years now, the SACP has often called for a reconfigured alliance. And you speak about the SACP contesting elections in 2017 in Metsimaholo and looking at this conference that they are expected to hold. Do you ever see a situation where the SACP breaks away from this alliance, particularly with what they've been calling for, this reconfigured alliance?
It is possible, although the ANC will definitely go out of its way to continue playing the dual game of having both the SACP and the DA on board. But yes, the SACP could potentially break away, but the result it will get will probably be much smaller than the type of influence they have on internal ANC deliberations and broad policy thrusts if they are not in that internal alliance. So, they would probably not do nearly as well as they would like to, should the SACP, run on their own in elections.
Professor, thank you so much for your time and for that insight. That is Professor Susan Booysen giving us an insight there in terms of that meeting that got underway today at Luthuli House, the ANC and the SACP having that bilateral meeting.